Already a bit behind on program, but I'm very happy to welcome you also on behalf of my colleague Caroline van der Molen from Eigen Focus and Justin Commodore from the Young Expert Program. My name is Babs Ates, I'm with the Food and Business Knowledge Platform, and I'm happy you are joining us for discussing the topic on youth and entrepreneurship. Of course, it's become a very hot topic, especially in the African context in the recent years. And today we're also going to dive a little bit deeper in youth and entrepreneurship. But however, this is of course a very broad topic. When discussing youth, it's not one specific group. There's a lot of differences in terms of age, economic background, country, and so on, but also social embeddedness. So in this session, we're not going to find the answer, but we just wanted to share with you some insights and for you to get inspired by people really working on these issues and also experiences these issues and topics. We've also tried to summarize it a bit for you, what's already known, because there's also a lot of work already being done on this topic in a lot of organizations working on it, and also quite some knowledge background. There's a two-pager in case you're interested, which goes a little bit into more detail on the current state of the art, as far as you can go in 2 pages. But we're not going to go into much detail on the knowledge background today. We're just going to share with you from the people from the field. And I guess I will just introduce you to our moderator of today, who will explain more about the program. And after this session, there's also a youth marketplace where you can find all of the participants as well, because there will not be a lot of time for questions, I'm afraid, but you can find them there. But also other organizations in this field, Dutch Diamond actors that are already working on the topic of youth and entrepreneurship or youth in agri-food systems, for possible linking up or synergy to see how we can scale initiatives or how we can work together to create more impact. So I hope it's useful to you, and I'm very happy to introduce you to Anna van Danzig, our moderator today from Dr. Mon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Babs, and thank you all for being here. Some of you have the pleasure of seeing my shoes, which are pretty wonderful, but the most wonderful thing is that you're here and that we're actually going to talk about youth and entrepreneurship in agriculture, because that's indeed a hot topic, and not for no reason. Maybe I'll tell you, oh, now everybody's wondering about the shoes, I'm sorry about that distraction. But I think it's really great that we're talking about this. It's not an easy time being a young person in the world today, but on the African continent, I think if youth was liquid, we'd be running very low, because I noticed I'm 35, I've already started to get a lot of gray hairs, and I think it's because there are many challenges being young and being entrepreneurial these days. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a social innovation agency called Dr. Monk that is based in Amsterdam and in Accra. And we do all sorts of user-centered research, trying to look for ways to go beyond the inequality situation that we face now. And youth in agriculture and using entrepreneurship as a response is an interesting one. So I really hope that it will be at a minimum inspiring for all of you here to have this conversation, because the other thing is we have many assumptions about youth. One of them is that youth do things quickly, and so more and more in these kinds of events we're asked to say things quickly and be very to the point, and do your presentation in one slide and ask your question in one word. And we're already half an hour behind time, so you won't have as much time within this session to ask questions, but as Babs already mentioned, there will be the youth market where you will meet some of the people who are presenting, and you can have a lot more of an in-depth exchange. Is that okay with you? We want to help each other get through this so we can have lunch. All right. So what are we going to do? We're going to first have a keynote speaker who's an expert, who has decades of experts. I think he can no longer claim youth. I'm sorry, it's not an insult. Growing older is a joy and a luxury. And after our keynote speaker, we will introduce the Youth Caravan, where we will have people telling us about their experiences with youth and entrepreneurship. And then we will have a quick Q&A, and then our time will be up. Then it's done. Then if you're very curious, if there are burning questions, you will most likely have to save them for the youth market. Okay, so we've agreed. You agreed? So I would like to welcome Dr. Kwesi Atta Kra, who also studied in my hometown in Legon in Ghana, and is now the director of, he's the executive director of Human Tropics from CGIAR, and has 30 to 40 years of experience in research in agriculture. So please give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Awan. I was the director of Human Tropics 6 years ago. Currently, I am director at the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, a program called Country Alignment, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So, I just got a text from my daughter, who is 35 years old, and she is presently in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She is involved in a program called EDC, Education Development Center, based in Washington. And she's on mission in DRC, trying to bring about out-of-school youth development, education programs. And so I was speaking to her this morning, and she said, you are going into a youth program, and I am also in a youth program in DRC. So it's quite interesting. And she said, please come with some photos of yourself. I can group you our way. So I'll get some volunteers who would use my camera whilst I'm delivering. Get some shots, which I will send to my daughter. Now, African agriculture transformation. You may be wondering what this is all about. This is the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. Last year was our 50th anniversary. So every staff member is in here. If you look carefully, you see somebody with a hat, and that looks like me and my colorful shirts. So, okay, so as a background, let me say something that we have heard about since yesterday when this whole conference started, that agriculture as a development and social sector, and just as a culture for sustainability, for subsistence, is an old-time business. What we have to move towards is agriculture as a business, agriculture as an investment facility. So move away from the pain, the penury, the poverty. This is the way we see agriculture. Growing up as a young child in Ghana, you go to school. On Saturdays, you are told you have to go to the farm, follow your grandmother to the farm. And you walk through to get into the farm, sometimes 10 kilometers. And you work and you come back. So the farm is the last place you want to be. And you go to the university, you don't go to read agriculture, your first choice is medicine. If you don't make the grade, then they put you into agriculture. You find a lot of people in agriculture grudgingly. And when you are in the university doing agriculture, there is nothing that excites. You go to the university agriculture farm, and everything is broken down, tractors that are broken down, nothing that excites. So you finish, you have a degree, and you are looking for something else to do. You want to work in a bank. You want to work somewhere. We've killed that spirit in agriculture. And so our big challenge is how do we move agriculture to the point where it's focused on wealth creation, jobs, and economic development. Let me start with some unacceptable realities, and we heard this today. Africa is spending $35 billion a year importing food. And often this is food that we can grow in Africa. Rice, wheat, poultry, you wouldn't believe it. We import so much chicken legs, chicken butts, and everything from Holland. And we have farmers there who are struggling to raise their poultry industry, and they just cannot get through it. If we do nothing about this situation, by 2025, we will be importing food to the tune of 110 billion. I'm talking about a year for the continent. At the same time, we have a youth bubbling with energy and yet unemployed. 60% of them, we're talking about, I'll show a slide later on. And then to make it even more amazing, the current crop of farmers we have out there, most of them in the rural areas, real poor farmers, 60 plus years old. How can we solve our big problems with this? Take Nigeria as a country. Nigeria alone spends about $11 billion every year importing food. 29 million youth are in the work market, but 60% of them don't find jobs. So we're talking about 17 million people chasing jobs. If we use that 11 billion, we can create jobs for 1 million people who will be earning real good money. And when I say good money, $700 to $1,000 a month. That is possible. And that is a way in which we can actually reduce the unemployment. And not only reduce the unemployment, but make more progress in dealing with the food that needs to be produced. It's not all bad news. There are good news. There are opportunities. And the opportunity is that our food and agriculture market in Africa is growing tremendously. By 2030, we are expecting $1 trillion in this market. Same with household consumption, expected to reach 2.1 trillion. Business-to-business transactions in agriculture. So basically what this slide is saying is that the market is there, the demand is there. So there are opportunities for growth. And think of a continent brimming with 840 million youth, the youngest in the world. And you see the potential. So what Africa needs is not aid. We had this yesterday, and I think we had a bit of it this morning. What Africa needs is better investment, better trade, partnerships. And that's why this Rabobank initiative and the Food First initiative is very relevant. Now let me tell you a few things about IITA, the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture. We are one of the CGIAR centers. We have a vision of being able to raise 11 million Africans out of poverty, but we want to do it sustainably. And in doing that, we want to redirect 7.5 million hectares of degraded land to sustainable use. So these are critical areas for us. And we use this as our key performance indicators, and we work to make sure it happens. We focus on 6 mandate crops: cowpea, soybean, maize, plantain and bananas, yams, and cassava. In each of these areas, we are involved in crop improvement, we are involved in plant health and crop protection, in value chain development, natural resources management. We are involved in social science and agribusiness. We are involved in, and that's one of the very interesting things about IITA, what we call the business incubation platform, where private sector comes on board to see how different things coming out of research can be commercialized in the private sector, mode. We are involved in youth entrepreneurship, and we are involved in delivery and scaling. Now let's focus on the youth opportunity and challenge. Unemployment, of course, is number one. And what unemployment does is it erodes your dignity. It erodes your confidence. It erodes your power. It erodes your independence. So we have all these young people, some of them graduates, gone through the system, and feeling so dejected in society. So they have to find a way out. Either they take the Mediterranean route, or they take the terrorism route. You've heard about Boko Haram. Some of those guys are graduates. They just couldn't find jobs. and they were easy targets, to be met. Or they move away from the rural and come to the urban and start creating all kinds of problems. So it's a very serious situation. The good news is that things are changing, but a lot more.
Oops.
Sorry. A lot more is needed. At this point, let me say that youth is not one homogeneous group. So we hear youth. It's not one homogeneous group. There are all kinds of differences. You've got rural youth, they have their own challenge, and you have urban youth. You've got out of school youth, you've got graduate youth, and you need different strategies. One strategy cannot fit all these dimensions. You have to be clear what group you are using. So programs that call themselves youth programs must be clear on what target groups are being assessed. And interlinkages is important. So you may be dealing with urban youth, but it's very important to ask your question, how does the work you do as urban youth benefit rural youth? How do we create that link between these groupings? That is what is essential to do. This was taken from a magazine in Kenya. One graduate who is so frustrated with her life, not getting a job, so she carried this by a very busy highway. Kindly give me a job. And her qualifications, Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. Graduated year 2000, and she's even quoted her matriculation number if you want to go and check her grades. That is the level of desperation that we see happening. But these two pictures are quite telling. What you see here is not a shot from Kiev, where Real Madrid were playing Liverpool recently. This is, believe it or not, a job application parade, where the immigration department of Nigeria said they have 5,000 jobs, and they had over 1 million applications. So they had to do state by state. And when they came to Lagos, the number was so huge they had to come to the stadium. So these are all guys who are here looking for a job. There was a stampede, a number of people died. Just trying to get a job. So this is not a football match. It's as bad as that. What you see here is the gateway into entering into my organization, IITA. Every Monday, you get a queue of people. What kind of jobs are these people looking for? Menial jobs. Spraying, weeding, painting. And in 2012, our director general got so concerned, went to interview some of them, and was surprised to find there are graduates in this group who just want to be able to learn. I mean, this is not the way things have to be. And this actually set off the IITA Youth Agripreneurs. So that's how it began. The response was the birth of the IITA Youth Agripreneur Movement in 2012. And there, agriculture and agribusiness is being seen as the way out. I don't want to tell you what entrepreneurship can do or what it is, because I know you all know. But when we started this program, we had a group of about 65. By the time the first phase ended, we were down to about 40. And as you can see from this pioneer group, very well balanced between the male and the female sector, because we're very serious about the gender balance issue. The other thing which is very amazing, these are not graduates of agriculture alone. They come from, some are historians, computer science, quantity surveying, agronomy, law, and whatever you have. Now, I'll shortly tell you how we actually put them together. The first issue is mobilization. How do you mobilize the youth when you have a program for agripreneurship? Can you say something? The key thing is changing the mindset, because they are all coming back from the history that I described, I went through growing up. And to let them know that agriculture is not just carrying a hoe and a cutlass and digging down and planting cassava and everything, that agriculture has a much broader scope. So bringing that into that reality is very important. And then training is going to be key. Exposure, exposing them to the reality, of the key steps in there, so that you can help them identify where they see, their own interests in there. Organizational development, how whatever they are going to do relates to the rest of the organization and relates to the market, relates to other things that are going on. Mentorship and coaching is key. We really have to have a mechanism for these young people who have gone through these systems, to have some coaching experiences, and here internships organized by private sector, internships organized by international organizations, etc. is key. And ultimately, the idea is that they graduate out of there having been able to develop a business that they are getting into. Now, this is just a picture that shows some, mobilization. In Nigeria, when you finish your first degree, you go through what they call the youth corps. And in the youth corps, you basically work for 1 year. And the government posts you wherever they want to post you. So in my organization, we get about 120 youth posted, and we work with them for 1 year and they move on. So that for us is the breeding ground of mobilization. So the picture you see here is one group that we have got out of that, and they come from different disciplines. They go through the training process, mentoring, value addition, business development, ICT, communication skills, ICT skills. We come up with all kinds of initiatives that will help them make business out of this. So basically, the business plan development is a key part that kicks them away from within IITA and puts them in the external business environment where they have to learn the market drive. They have to look for, how we can get loan facilities for them to be able to start. Because without financing, they are not able to do what needs to be done. A few good examples of some of the young people. When you have 2-3 people who get together, they set up their own companies, they get a small loan, and they start. Obviously, when they start, the revenue base is quite low, and the total production cost is often high. But the quick question is how quickly they cross over so that they start actually making some profit out of that. Flushing fish farms is basically processing the fish that is, caught in there. And it's amazing, how these young people are able to discover avenues for raising money. Value-added products, they are into all kinds of things. Different groups of people producing soya milk, tidbits, and other elements. So all these are. Now this initiative has actually expanded beyond the startup base in 2012, and it is now covering quite a number of countries that you see here. The interesting thing is all these are places where IITA has a station. So we're basically saying this is not going to be enough. What about the rest of the continent? If you have people in other places, and even in the places where IITA is, how do we really scale up? It's all about scaling up. So, I'm happy to say that International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD president is with us, he's not in the room here, but IFAD was one of the groups that really supported the startup of this process. And now, the African Development Bank has also brought so much into this, and the African Development Bank has established a program they call Enable Youth Program. Enable, you go on the internet, you can put in Enable Youth Program to create business opportunities and decent employment for young women and men along priority agricultural value chains. Enable stands for Empowering Novel agribusiness-led employment for youth in Africa. So that's what the Enable Youth stands for. And it builds upon the IITA EA concept, and it operates from loans, loans that are given to countries. So this has a huge opportunity for countries. In Nigeria, for instance, the plan is that there will be 1,000 graduates trained who will end up with loan facilities guaranteed by the African Development Bank in each state. So in Nigeria, there are 37 states. So we're already talking about 37,000 young people who are to benefit in Nigeria from this sort of program. And the same thing goes on in other countries. As we speak, there are 32 African countries that have put in bids at different levels to be able to initiate this program. It's a big initiative, 12.5 billion to support enterprise and job creation. It's estimated that 1.25 million agribusiness jobs will be created over the next 5 years. Of course, that also depends on how quickly the individual countries go through the processes and various levels. Time doesn't allow me to stop, but this highlights how it has spread out. The green states are the ones that are most advanced in this process of developing work. But as I said, 32 countries are in various stages of developing. Let me close with some closing thoughts. Stimulating entrepreneurship begins with mindset change. I think the agriculture in the mindset of young people is very unattractive. And we have to really invest time to let them experience. And that is why groups like IITA are so vital. Because when they learn into IITA, they find like they are in a different world. And they begin to see how things can work. And they are exposed to different dimensions. And they don't stay there because their projects have to be based outside IITA in the reality of the systems that are there. Their business plans have to be developed from that reality. But their training and everything is done within IITA. So making agriculture attractive is a critical part. And also, we want to encourage youth that instead of chasing jobs, they should try to see their entrepreneurship to be job creators. So each of the projects that they develop, they have to give a trajectory of how many people they are employing in the first 5 years, the second 10 years, what is the target, and how they are going to be able to get there. Experience has shown that active engagement and participation of youth is essential for structural transformation in agriculture. Since we are here, we have the Dutch Diamond Actors. Let me be bold to say that we are calling on the Dutch Diamond Actors, beginning with the government, set right policies and enabling environment. In other words, support. If you want to work in Kenya, don't just throw money into the system. Begin by asking the hard questions to the government. What is the policy that supports youth entrepreneurship? How are these things being done? What needs to change? And then support that process of structural change. That is vital. Research institutions engage and involve youth in research, internships, job opportunities in agribusiness. And that's what my own organization is doing. Businesses, civil society, cooperatives, once again, engaging youth. Create space for them. This whole thinking that the youth are leaders of tomorrow, you have to completely strike that out of your thinking. The youth are leaders now. They are leaders today. There is a lot of things that youth can do today that, I guess I'm also youth, except I'm a little bit slightly over the top. But, we have to really recognize, what youth can do. And banks and financial institutions to be able to create special financing mechanisms for youth entrepreneurship. And this often has to be done in partnership with Nigeria. With governments. In Nigeria, there's a program called NIRSA. I forgot exactly what it stands for. But it's a very interesting facility between the African Development Bank and the Nigerian government, when they set up this, it's kind of like a bank, but the African Development Bank co-shares in the risk associated with, so they buy part of the risk, all aimed at making financing cheaper for young entrepreneurs and young people who get into trying to get this loan facility. So overall, action is needed from all sources. And my final slide is to say that as we talk about youth, the talking is too much. We need to start acting. All hands must be on deck. And don't try and get things perfect before you begin. When we started in 2012, it was really out of passion from one individual who felt this thing cannot go on. We didn't have the answers. We said, let's get them in, give them a new excitement, get them going. Every year we learn, every year we learn. Now we have a model that is accepted by the African Development Bank, and they are upscaling that model. So I really want to challenge that all hands need to be on deck. We have to look at mainstreaming of youth dimensions in organizations and businesses. We also have to establish specialized initiatives on youth entrepreneurship, such as here, and I know there are so many of these initiatives. Coaching and mentoring is important, and easy access to financing, grants, and loans. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I will stop here. I hope I have been able to give you a sense of how we see this whole youth and entrepreneurship business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kwesi Atakra, for this very compelling and very visual presentation. You are indeed young. I, as a young person, now pronounce you young because you've done, I really found it very, very interesting. I think visuals are incredibly powerful, and I think the image of the young people applying for a job is incredibly scary to see what's actually going on. But you could also